As a nation, we're pretty accustomed to doom and gloom, but there are pockets that tell a different story. This is Tonight. I am Bruce Whitfield. Tonight we're looking at what's happening in the deal-making space. Also, a couple of new listings coming to the market as well. Joining me, Andrea Taverna-Turisan, who's Chief Executive of Equites Property Fund, listing this week, and Andrew Hannington, Chief Executive of Grant Thornton Johannesburg, who's going to try and convince us things have never been better. I exaggerated a little bit, Andrew, there, but I mean, the fact is that there is plenty of deal-making activity going on, which is counterintuitive to the national mood.
Bruce, just post the State of the Nation address, I think the national mood has lifted up somewhat. We're quite bullish about what's going on in the country. In our corporate finance division at Grant Thornton, very, very busy. New listings, due diligences, valuations. They're a busy team.
Because we had 2008 was supposed to create an opportunity for the Brian Joffeys in the world to go and buy assets for absolutely nothing. Prices dipped a little bit, and ever since about 2009, prices have been going up, up, and up. And the sense was that we wasn't being that much deal-making activity. Sure, Brian Joffey has subsequently bought Adcock Ingram, but how many other deals are really being done?
Bruce, we've seen a lot of deals. We've seen all through those years that guys have been acquiring businesses. We do a survey every year at Grant Thornton. We've seen a 12% increase in the deal-making activities of the South Africans, which is in fact ahead of international norms.
No, I mean, there's more appetite for deal-making in South Africa, your report tells us, than there is in the United States, for example.
Very similar numbers there, but the South Africans are entrepreneurial, and we are going to see a new wave of entrepreneurs coming through, I believe, Bruce, post the election. The psychic of the nation is in a good space. Unfortunately, we don't have a World Cup to celebrate this year, which would really help us. We would like that kind of every 2 years. That'll really help the psychic of the nation. But post-elections, things are settling down, and we've seen the guys go back into deal mode. Not only the big deals of Brian Joffey, but many smaller deals.
But how do you then sort of tell me that in one breath? We look at the double deficit. We look at the fact that South Africa's economy is screeching to a halt. Everybody is downgrading us. We've seen the ratings downgrades come through from Fitch and from Standard & Poor's. The macro economy feels broken, but inside the economy, there's a lot of vibrancy going on.
Bruce, yeah, it's the entrepreneurial spirit of the South African business people that they are looking to do acquisitions. A lot of the guys have said in surveys we've done that they're looking to invest offshore, but we're not actually seeing them go offshore. We run an Asia Business Services desk where we're seeing great interest from Chinese companies coming into not only South Africa, but into Africa.
And a lot of what's happening in South Africa is in the property sector right now as well. 2 or 3 years ago, people were forecasting the demise of the property sector. Interest rates were going to start going up, and we would see the yields plummet on property. That hasn't happened. In fact, there are more and more listings coming to the market all the time.
Bruce, yes, of the 5 listings we got in the pipeline at Grant Thornton in Johannesburg, only 1 is in the property sector, 4 are outside of the property sector. So things are changing. Yeah. I think we've only worked on property sector listings in the last 3 or 4 years. But
Andrea, you brought Equites Property Fund to the market this week. Your sense of the timing of it as well, property market is elevated. There is a lot of deal-making activity happening in the property sector right now. Why the timing? Are you looking for a corporate buyout?
Definitely not looking for a corporate buyout. The timing from our point of view was really a function of the REIT legislation coming through last year, and the vendor groups involved in our listing needed certainty in terms of the capital gains dispensation. The process then took its time. We had 3 vendor groups who were entrepreneurs and had never really been in the corporate space. So going through the process of getting accreditation for the JSE listing and everything took its time.
But you created this property business. It owns predominantly industrial assets and some office space in the Western Cape. Will it remain a Western Cape focused company, or is the plan to spread its wings outside of that area?
Obviously the plan is to spread one's wings. The key sort of segment that we would like to grow into and become known and focused in is the distribution warehousing segment of the industrial market. Now, Durban is, I believe, the 12th biggest port in the world, and invariably the logistics hub of anything coming into sub-Saharan Africa. So having a presence there, I think, is very important to us. However, we won't just rush in to do a deal for the sake of doing a deal. And then Gauteng is the industrial hub of sub-Saharan Africa as well. So not having a presence here is also something we would like to sort of change going forward.
And one of the areas that's seen the greatest amount of consolidation on the JSE in the last 5 years has been the property sector. You had the growth points of the world going up and buying anything not nailed down. Is he nailed down firmly enough not to find himself with a nice Mr. Wayner knocking on his doors to go, we'll have you, thank you very much.
Bruce, on the way in, just talking to Andrea, said, I've got a couple of properties I can give him, pass his way. So we exchanged business cards. Nice to meet him, man from Cape Town, the property sector. And I said to him, I'm no doubt he's put himself up and to be bought out in the not too distant future. About 2 years ago, we listed annuity, and it was Mr. Wayne who bought out annuity just last week.
Absolutely right. I mean, and that's what's so exciting about this space. I mean, you don't have ambitions to sell out right now. You want to grow this business. You've gone away a distance with it as well. But it is a sector where there's plenty of consolidation happening. Will you be a consolidator or a consolidatee?
Well, at the right opportunity, we would be very happy to take stuff out. Unfortunately, there isn't anybody in the market that is as specifically focused as we are. Most funds are pretty generic.
So you've got to acquire organically, and you've got to grow slowly, have you?
Well, and develop. We are developers. We've grown our fund into what it is today with basically no capital. Effectively, we've done it by being entrepreneurs and putting ourselves out there, and we've done what we've done successfully.
What is the scope for property development, especially in that industrial space, when it goes through municipal processes, when it comes through the logistics of doing all of that? It seems to be quite a cumbersome, quite a slow process.
Yeah, it does take time invariably, and the municipalities have their challenges in terms of getting plans approved. We have overcome some of these elements with the technologies that we used for building, especially the distribution warehousing, which gives us about a 6 to 8 week head start, because certain parts of the facilities we can actually start off-site and bring to site. So those elements are critical in terms of us being able to unlock quicker than maybe the average development company. But most importantly in this space, it's about having access to capital and having access to land.
Which is what you've got now. You've got the access to capital.
And land.
How far does this capital take you, the money that you've raised from the listing?
Listen, with the money we've raised, we're going to be reducing our debt down to about 3.6, 3.7%. Strategically, we are able to go up to 40% in terms of debt, which means with the properties that we've got in our pipeline to unlock, we've probably got about R1 billion to spend before we would need to come back to market.
Okay, and how long does it take you to spend R1 billion?
Depending on the deal flow, but
and what is the deal flow like? I mean, Andrew tells us that it's Christmas come early.
Yeah, well, listen, we currently pitching on at least 5 substantial deals. I'm not saying we will get them all, because invariably there is competition out there, and very competent competition. But if we were to get even 2 of the 5, we would be very, very chuffed with our position. And then we also have fantastic relationships with our tenants, which is part of our success in our private capacity. So we'd like to think that there may be opportunities coming also with our tenant base in the markets that we mentioned earlier, be it the Durban market and the Gauteng market.
Does this optimism reflect what you're seeing in your surveys then, Andrew?
Bruce, undoubtedly. We are seeing this kind of optimism. No doubt with Andrea's R1 billion, we could sort that out by the end of the week and find some properties for him, and he'll mop up what's around in Gauteng or in our cloud base. So we can certainly do some deals. We'll cut you in on an introductory commission there, Bruce.
It's quite all right. I'm quite happy to fly above this one. but the reality is, we sit here and we can get mired in doom and gloom if we like. However, people who've seen, especially property entrepreneurs, throughout the decades, whether it was post-Sharpeville, whether it was post-1976, whether it was post the Rubicon speech, whether it was pre-1994, whatever crisis South Africa has faced of confidence and everything else, people who have made real money in this country have been people who have taken the opportunities presented to them on a silver platter.
Bruce, the 2 sectors that we obviously track, be the all share, the equities and property, and they've over 20, 30, 40 years, they've followed each other, and in most cases, properties outperform the equities, even at an all share in excess of 50,000. People have made an untold fortune in South Africa on properties. At the end of the day, it's a limited resource, and you can't take property away.
But it is the ultimate vote of confidence in the future. If you have a suitcase full of Krugerrands, you can take those off to Greenland if you want to. Property goes absolutely nowhere, Andrea, and that is the vote of confidence. So you look at the state of the nation, you look at the nation in a state, you look at the fact that we have low growth rates, we've been downgraded by the ratings agencies, And you want to commit R1 billion worth of capital into fixed assets.
Absolutely. But fixed assets which are new to the market. We also have to take into consideration the sector of the market that we are talking about, and that is the distribution warehousing sector. Now that sector, most buildings that were built prior to 2000 are technically obsolete for that sector. You've got to understand that our buildings tend to be between 13 and 16 meters to underside of eaves. Now,
in English,
what that means is that we rent our space to our tenants in a rand per square meter basis. They rent their space onto their clients in a pallet position, which means they're renting by cubic meters.
Right.
So the higher you go, the more you can fit into the box. But the higher you go, other elements come into play, and that is you need to have super flat floors, because otherwise when your forklift comes in, a 10 mil sort of pendants here becomes half a meter up there, and you could have disasters.
But it is interesting. But then also, the obsolescence of the technology makes it possible. Has he got enough potential business in the pipeline, Andrew, to keep him going? Because
Bruce, he's focused. I think he has. It sounds like an excellent model. First time I hear about it. I didn't follow this one, but 50 million people need food tonight. Those 50 million people, that food is coming through one of Andrea's warehouses. So he's going to be very busy moving the nation, feeding the nation, clothing the nation. Those goods that are coming in through the ports that Andrea talks about, that's getting onto the shelves in our supermarkets. That's going to go through a warehouse somewhere in South Africa. And that's an ever increasing, as we get more and more prosperous, it's ever increasing need for space.
Final serious question. Have you ever tried to drive one of those blooming forklift trucks?
Yes.
They're blooming nightmare, absolute nightmare. Andrea Taverna-Turisan, who can drive a forklift truck as well as be chief executive of Equites Property Fund, coming to market with a successful oversubscribed listing this week. And Andrew Hannington, the chief executive of Grant Thornton Johannesburg, effervescent and bullish on the future prospects for South Africa in an otherwise quite gloomy environment. Thank you for watching. Until the next deal, there'll be more tonight, tomorrow. Till then, bye-bye.